It's time for the Day 4 Dreamers Welcome, and enjoy the storyline on this channel. It's time for the Day 4 Dreamers. That day, the weather in the Frontera region looked clear. On the lake, Stroma was on top of a droggy, shouting to wake everyone up. Hearing that, the angel, Rafael, immediately got up from his bed. Rafael quickly got dressed and got ready to go outside for a walk. His appearance looked perfect, without a single wound visible on his body. A moment later, Rafael started jogging in the morning. His majestic, angelic aura attracted the attention of animals that joined him in running. While running, Rafael listened to the melodious chirping of birds as if inviting him to sing along. After taking a deep breath, the sound of a heavenly song began to softly flow through the air. The voice that came out was so enchanting, spreading in all directions and mesmerizing the animals nearby. Even the villagers who happened to hear the song felt entertained. Unlike Lloyd's singing, which could bring disaster, Rafael's song brought peace and happiness. Meanwhile, the leader of the White Cavalry, who previously considered Rafael an enemy, now began to see him as a new source of inspiration. Some people began to compare Rafael's singing with Lloyd's, wondering why Lloyd's singing couldn't be like Rafael's. Amidst that atmosphere of comparison, Mr. Byron noticed Lloyd's presence and immediately apologized. Honestly, Mr. Byron explained that his earlier remark was just a reflex reaction, because ever since hearing Lloyd singing a few days ago, everyone had been haunted by nightmares every night. Although Mr. Byron's words felt hurtful, Lloyd understood his honesty. However, it made him start to feel bothered by Rafael's presence in his territory. Javier suspected that Lloyd was jealous because Rafael was now liked by many people. Javier added that it's only natural for an angel to be loved more than someone who is considered to resemble a demon from hell. Javier's words made Lloyd even more upset. He asked sharply if Javier really was comparing him to a demon from hell. Lloyd also reminded him that Rafael was the one who attacked them first. Even though he understood, Javier still pointed out that Rafael is now loved by many people, even by Lloyd's pet, who seems to be close to Rafael. This made Lloyd think that they were traitors. Javier then asked why Lloyd didn't just kick Rafael out if his presence was really that disturbing. Lloyd explained that he had signed a contract with Rafael. The contract would bring him many benefits in the future. Lloyd then recalled the conversation he had with Rafael a few days earlier. At that time, Lloyd asked Rafael to provide all the information regarding the Angels of Heaven's plans about the Pearl of Truth. Rafael agreed because he still had access to the heavenly smartphone, which allowed him to gather information quickly and accurately. Lloyd then asked if Rafael still had the power to prove himself as an angel. Without hesitation, Rafael revealed his wings and a halo above his head. A heavenly aura surrounded him, and Rafael asked if his appearance was convincing enough. He explained that even though most of his power had been sealed, he could still make use of that appearance. Lloyd smiled slyly and began to explain his grand plan to Rafael. Back in the present, Lloyd was walking by the lake with Javier. Lloyd explained that the angels of heaven were busy discussing the construction of the Pearl of Truth. They had to finish the construction quickly, make use of the pearl, and then destroy the building to solve all the problems. Lloyd thought that all of that would only take a few hours. However, Javier, who was walking behind him, had a different thought. In the middle of the discussion, Javier suddenly said that Lloyd's singing was much greater than Rafael's. Those words surprised Lloyd. He asked what Javier meant by such nonsense. Javier explained that Lloyd's singing was a perfect blend of screams and curses, like a wave of disaster enveloping everything. Lloyd started to think that Javier might be more suited to being a poet. Javier continued, saying that Lloyd seemed uncomfortable singing because every time he finished, he always became embarrassed and self-conscious. However, Javier asked Lloyd to keep singing with all his heart because the song had become part of his sacrifice. According to Javier, if there was a most magnificent song, then it would be Lloyd's singing. The sincere praise surprised Lloyd. However, he ended the conversation by saying that Javier might have gone crazy. Javier, in a joking tone, said that he certainly didn't want to hear Lloyd singing right now, because just imagining it was already depressing. Those words made Lloyd even more annoyed. He asked Javier to stop talking about it as he started walking again. Lloyd and Javier's relationship went beyond employer and subordinate. The trust between them was so deep that its strength could shake the heavens. Not long after, Goming flew to the top of the tower, carrying a glowing cube called Chiora. Once he was near the top, he dropped Chiora, which was immediately absorbed into the diamond at the peak of the Pearl of Truth building. In an instant, water began to flow into the area around the Pearl of Truth, gradually flooding the region. Lloyd received a notification from the system confirming his success in building the first dam baton in history. As a result, he earned 1,500 reputation points, raising his total to 10,071 points. The flow of water from the dam grew stronger, submerging the Pearl of Truth building completely beneath the surface. Without hesitation, Lloyd dove into the water with great enthusiasm, hoping to find the answers he had been searching for all this time. With full confidence, he reached out his hand toward the Pearl of Truth. When his hand touched the surface of the artifact, a bright light shone, radiating a powerful aura. The Pearl of Truth revealed its identity as an artifact capable of providing answers to all questions. But with one condition: the questioner must share a secret that no one else knows. Lloyd fell silent, trying to think of a secret worthy of sharing. He briefly considered revealing his true identity as Kim Susuho, but that was already known by Javier. Because of that, he had to think of another secret that truly no one knew. Finally, Lloyd decided to share an unusual personal secret. After he finished revealing it, a bright light shot out from the Pearl of Truth, flew into the sky, and exploded, displaying words in the clouds that revealed the secret to everyone. Lloyd was stunned, feeling embarrassed because his personal secret had now become public knowledge. Next to him, Javier looked up and innocently wondered, which triggered Lloyd's anger as he asked Javier to pretend he didn't know anything. Lloyd questioned Javier's presence beside him. Javier explained that he heard there would be a strong shockwave when the Pearl of Truth was activated, so he came to make sure Lloyd was safe. This explanation made Lloyd even more confused, as if Javier was anticipating something fatal happening to him. The Pearl of Truth then asked Lloyd to ask a question. Carefully, Lloyd explained that he came from another world. He revealed that even though he managed to avoid misfortune or death at first, the phenomenon of fate restoration kept trying to bring that misfortune back. Lloyd asked how to avoid that phenomenon. The Pearl of Truth shone even brighter, producing a strong wave of energy. Javier immediately protected Lloyd with his wings, keeping him safe from the powerful force that was flowing. Suddenly, everything went dark, and Lloyd felt himself transported to a different world. The voice of the Pearl of Truth echoed, explaining that the place was a special space for conversation, where only Lloyd could hear its answers. The Pearl of Truth revealed a shocking fact. The real Lloyd Frontera was supposed to be dead, but Kim Susuho had taken over his body. As a result, Lloyd took the position of this world's protagonist, which was supposed to belong to Javier Arahan. This world, trapped in a system error, keeps trying to restore its destiny by returning to the original story. However, Lloyd's existence as an anomaly makes this world unable to find its true protagonist. To stop this chaos, a story reset is needed. The only solution is that either Lloyd or Javier must die to trigger the reset. When Lloyd returned to his original dimension, his body was weak and his mind was filled with despair. Javier, who was nearby, tried hard to wake Lloyd up, looking panicked at his condition. In his mind, Lloyd felt that he had fought tirelessly with the hope that everything would get better. However, that hope slowly faded. He reached his hand toward the light, as if he still wanted to believe that there was a chance to fix everything. Meanwhile, Javier channeled mana into Lloyd's heart, trying hard to keep him alive. However, Lloyd's will to live seemed to fade, and the light that was once bright was now starting to dim. In the darkness of his mind, Lloyd felt trapped in despair. Meanwhile, in the real world, his body looked fragile, as if it was on the verge of death. Javier used all of his aura to restore Lloyd's condition. However, even so, Lloyd's body continued to show signs of deterioration. His heartbeat was rapidly growing still. It was almost as if life was starting to leave him. In the midst of that struggle, Lloyd pondered what would happen if he died. The Pearl of Truth, with a cold and certain voice, explained that Lloyd's resurrection would not succeed. Even if Lloyd tried to go to Saul, leaving this world, it would not be considered true death. This explanation added a new layer to Lloyd's mental burden. The Heart of Winter, witnessing this situation, began to worry. He was afraid that Lloyd would truly die if this condition continued. The system, which usually provides solutions, could only state that this was a mental illness and added that it could not do anything to handle it. Lloyd's gaze slowly lost its light, while the Pearl of Truth delivered a terrifying final statement. The only way out of this situation is if one of them, Lloyd or Javier, dies. As Lloyd's body weakened and his eyes began to close, the Pearl of Truth declared that the time had come. In an instant, time, which had previously felt frozen, began to move again. Lloyd suddenly clutched his chest tightly. The intense pain made his body tremble. He struggled on his bed, fighting against something he couldn't understand. His mind was in turmoil, filled with doubt and anger. The system, which he had relied on all this time, now felt like an entity that was toying with him. In his mind, Lloyd questioned who the system really was. How could something that claimed to be higher than gods and demons force him to face this kind of suffering? Outside the room, Lloyd's parents looked worried, wanting to check on Lloyd's condition. However, Jafir stopped them, hoping they would give Lloyd some time to recover. The mother wondered if Lloyd had found a way to overcome the misfortune that kept threatening them. The father, with a gloomy expression, looked at Jafir with hope. Jafir, with remarkable calmness, assured them that Lloyd was just exhausted. After a while, Lloyd's parents entrusted their child to Jafir, hoping that the man could take care of Lloyd better than they could themselves. With heavy hearts, they left Lloyd's room. Jafir slowly entered the room, gazing at Lloyd, who was lying there weak. He didn't know what the Pearl of Truth had said to Lloyd, but he always believed that Lloyd was someone who could find a way out of every problem. In his heart, Jafir swore to do everything to save Lloyd. He asked Lloyd to hold on, because he would not let his friend give in to despair. Jafir immediately went to meet Rafael to look for information. Rafael explained that heaven was preparing to summon Lloyd back, but there was no exact date because the meeting could be delayed. Hearing that, Jafir immediately took action. He gathered candles, lit them with a slash of his sword, then knelt in the middle of the glowing light. In a solemn silence, he offered a prayer. The prayer was so heartfelt and full of desperation, begging for Lloyd to be returned soon. Jafir's sincerity was so profound that it drew the attention of the angels in heaven. Not long after, a portal to heaven appeared before Jafir. He smiled faintly, realizing that his prayer had been heard. Without hesitation, Jafir entered the portal, pulling Rafael, who looked hesitant and afraid of the consequences of his involvement. Jafir reminded Rafael about the contract they had made, forcing him to come along despite his strong objections. After passing through the portal, they arrived before Gabriel, the old angel who looked surprised to see them. Gabriel tried to explain that the Pearl of Truth was a dangerous structure that should be destroyed. Jafir agreed, mentioning that the structure really shouldn't exist, but he set a condition. The destruction must be postponed until Lloyd's problem is resolved. Gabriel, although he initially refused, finally agreed after Jafir reminded him that heaven's negligence had caused great suffering for humanity. With the same firmness, Jafir set a second condition. Heaven must order the Magentano family to hand over the Eye of Summer to Lloyd Frontera, with Rafael as their representative. This request surprised Gabriel, as he felt that heaven had already given enough compensation. However, Jafir explained that the request was a form of prevention against the financial losses and emotional wounds he suffered as a result of this conflict. Gabriel, although initially annoyed by Jafir's cunning, could not argue after using his eyes of truth. Jafir's sincerity was so evident that Gabriel had no choice but to agree. Although previously considered a guest, Jafir now looked more like a figure who came from hell. Meanwhile, at the Frontera family residence, Lloyd gave Emily permission to enter his room. Lloyd still hadn't fully recovered. However, Emily still apologized for disturbing his rest. The girl then handed an envelope to Lloyd. Inside was her wedding invitation. Emily explained that she would soon marry Kuga, and this invitation was made especially for Lloyd as a token of gratitude. Without Lloyd's help, she might never have met her future husband. Although Emily looked happy, he couldn't show the same happiness. Emily joyfully expressed that many good things had happened in the region thanks to Lloyd, and everyone felt grateful to him. Lloyd tried to smile and thanked her for the compliment. After that, Emily gathered the blankets in Lloyd's room to wash them and left the room. Lloyd managed to congratulate her on her marriage. However, in his heart, he apologized to everyone. Lloyd just wanted them to be happy, but now he felt he could no longer do anything for them. He knew there were only two choices. Either he or Javier had to die. And as the main character, Javier must not die. Suddenly, a cold sensation pierced and stopped Lloyd's heartbeat, causing an incredible pain in his chest. He fell to the floor, while a thought crossed his mind. He was just a supporting character. If he died, it wouldn't be a problem. However, a system message suddenly appeared, denying that thought. The message stated that his wish had not been fulfilled, and he had to stay alive, or everything would be in vain. At the same time, Lloyd's body began to fade away. Strangely, he seemed resigned to all of this. At the same time, strange creatures began to emerge from the sea. Count Cremo watched the scene with caution. More and more of those creatures kept appearing. Meanwhile, in Isfahan, the project created by Lloyd began to collapse. On the other hand, the Sultan looked furious, questioning who dared to attack his territory. A soldier reported that the intruders were burning the palace. In the middle of the forest, wild beasts appeared, frightening the surrounding wildlife. The elves fought against those creatures without knowing where they came from. If this continues, the entire ecosystem will be destroyed. News of this disaster reached Queen Alicia, who began to wonder why everything was happening all at once. At the same time, Jafir rode Draghi while carrying a large package to the palace. Upon arriving there, he requested an audience with Queen Alicia. After paying his respects, Queen Alicia immediately noticed Lloyd's absence. She wondered what was going on. However, Jafir pretended not to understand, which annoyed the queen. Seeing that Jafir would not speak honestly, she asked what he had brought. Jafir replied that it was leftover iron from their territory, which might be useful for military purposes. As the conversation continued, a bright light suddenly filled the room. Heavenly music played, making Queen Alicia feel uncomfortable. From her throne, the light revealed a figure floating in the air. Slowly, the creature opened its wings, revealing itself as an angel, surprising the nobles who were present. Even Queen Alicia found it hard to believe what she was seeing. With a trembling voice, Angel Rafael announced that he had come by the will of heaven and ordered Queen Alicia to immediately hand over the Eye of Summer to Lloyd Frontera. After delivering the message, Rafael's form began to fade, and the light disappeared as quickly as lightning. Queen Alicia felt that everything was too strange. It felt like a trick devised by Lloyd. She asked Jafir to be honest. However, Jafir himself looked shaken by what he had just witnessed. The nobles began to argue. Some said it was a divine revelation. Meanwhile, others argued that they couldn't hand over the artifact because the Heart of Winter was already lost. That artifact was the only weapon left. Jafir remembered his conversation in heaven. Gabriel refused his request, because angels cannot lie. However, Jafar argued that there was no lie in asking to hand over the Eye of Summer. If the angel just said to give it, it doesn't mean the angel is deceiving humans. Everything is going according to plan. Now, only one thing remains: to gain the full trust of Queen Alicia. A few moments after the nobles' discussion, Queen Alicia began to think about something that was on her mind. She asked Jafir whether Lloyd was behind the appearance of the angel. Since he couldn't lie to her, Jafir admitted the truth. Finally, he stopped pretending not to know. Jafir revealed that none of the queen's followers realized that it was all just an act. He pretended to be surprised like the others. However, he knew that Queen Alicia would never be fooled. And this actually ended up making the queen upset. If Jafir acted recklessly, he might be punished like Lloyd was before. But as a knight, he would never do something so disgraceful. Even Queen Alicia considered the punishment a pitiful sight. However, at least one thing became clear. The angel was real. Queen Alicia also realized that Lloyd had the ability to deceive even the kingdom's holy dragon. Returning to the main issue, she immediately asked why Jafir needed the Eye of Summer. After thinking for a moment, Jafir answered that his master was on the verge of death. This answer surprised the queen. At the Frontera residence, Emily and Lloyd's mother brought food for Lloyd. However, Lloyd refused to open the door and asked them to leave the food tray outside. Although she was worried, Lloyd's mother asked Emily to do as he asked. Emily finally complied, leaving a message for Lloyd to contact her if he needed anything. The food tray remained outside for quite a while until Lloyd finally took it. But he didn't eat it. The food was just added to a pile of other untouched trays in his room. In the palace, Queen Alicia listened to Jafir's explanation about the phenomenon called fate restoration. Jafir explained that all the destinies that had been changed by Lloyd would slowly return to their original state. This statement made Queen Alicia feel afraid. Her mind drifted to the Gigantitan attack and the rebellion in Isfahan. Only Lloyd was able to stop that chaos. Is everything really trying to return to its original path? In the dark room, Lloyd was still sitting weakly on the floor. A small sound came from beneath his clothes as his pet began to come out. Padong, one of his most loyal pets, approached and tried to hug Lloyd's face, as if wanting to comfort him. A system message suddenly appeared in front of Lloyd, showing the face of Lloyd's parent. Padong's face turned determined. Together with the other animals, he began to pull at Lloyd, who looked exhausted and reluctant to move. However, after being pushed several times, Lloyd finally gave in and followed them. Lloyd's pets took him upstairs, heading to his parents' room. From a distance, Lloyd could hear his mother talking about his worsening health. Even though Jaffier said that Lloyd was just tired, Lloyd's mother knew that it was just a lie. She also revealed that Jaffier had lied before, saying that Lloyd had a head injury to protect someone who was impersonating their son. These words weighed even more heavily on Lloyd. He had previously thought that his parents had believed the lie. The pain in his chest returned. However, Lloyd's father stated that if Jaffier went that far, then that person must have tried his best for them. Lloyd's mother also agreed that Jaffier was not a bad person, and they decided to wait. When Lloyd recovered, they were sure he would tell the truth. Hearing those words, Lloyd ran through the hallway of the house to his room. This time, his mind began to change. He had to stay alive. Only by staying alive could he reveal the truth to his parents honestly. Head held high. On the other hand, Queen Alicia finally understood the reason behind the appearance of the angel, even though the nobles were still debating whether it was real. For Jaffier, there was only one person capable of resolving all this, and that was Lloyd Frontera. However, Queen Alicia added that the person was dying and had lost the will to fight. She concluded that they had to help Lloyd return to normal so that they could stop the restoration of fate. With full confidence, the Queen stated that her ability was to make people work according to plan. At the Frontera residence, Lloyd slowly tried to overcome his depression. The first small step he took was to stop isolating himself, accept help, and thank his pet. He started thinking about simple things he could do, like cleaning his room and taking a shower. However, he also realized that he had to make a plan. He had to survive, find a way to fight fate, and obtain the Eye of Summer. As these thoughts filled his mind, a sound from outside caught his attention. Draghi had arrived at the mansion. Lloyd looked out the window, not knowing what was happening. Javier entered the house and met Lloyd's parents, informing them that an important guest was waiting. Together, they headed to another room where the guest had already caught him. When Lloyd's parents arrived, they saw a red-haired woman wearing a green dress. While bowing, the woman introduced herself as the fiancée of the Frontera family's son, Queen Alicia Termina Magentano. Lloyd's parents were stunned when they heard it, then panicked. They immediately knelt before the queen, but Alicia calmly asked them to stand, referring to herself as their daughter. Looking at Lloyd, she asked if her fiancé agreed with all of this. From the window, Lloyd could only watch in disbelief. On a tense night at the Frontera family residence, the atmosphere was extremely intense. In the quiet main hall, Queen Alicia sat gracefully on a large chair. Her gaze was focused straight ahead, full of meaning that could not be ignored. On the other side, Lloyd's parents looked clearly stressed. Sweat poured down their faces, indicating a nervousness that could not be hidden. Lloyd looked like he didn't know what to do. His body was stiff, as if frozen into silence, unable to express anything. Meanwhile, Queen Alicia gracefully sipped tea from her cup, then asked where they got the tea leaves from. When Lloyd's mother took too long to answer, Queen Alicia repeated her question. Marbella, in a panic, said that the tea leaves were not stolen. However, Lloyd's father admitted it while saying that this would surely cause a misunderstanding. Lloyd, who felt uncomfortable with this situation, tried to calm them down. However, Queen Alicia asked a sharp question about whether Lloyd had lied about their marriage. This question made Lloyd's parents even more confused. They couldn't handle the pressure of the situation and eventually fainted. Lloyd then asked his parents to calm down because he would explain. Lloyd reluctantly admitted that this marriage was a fake marriage. This information once again made Lloyd's parents feel as if their souls had left their bodies. In his mind, Lloyd wondered why Javier brought the Queen here. However, the knight just pretended not to know, leaving Lloyd in confusion. Now it was Queen Alicia's turn to speak. Queen Alicia began to explain that Lloyd possessed a royal treasure that had been given to him. The marriage with the Magentano family was determined by the founding divine dragon Tyrannus, who questioned how Lloyd obtained the treasure without being part of the royal family. To answer this, Lloyd lied that he married Queen Alicia, thus becoming part of the royal family. This explanation adds to the worries of Lloyd's parents, who now realize that this problem is bigger than they imagined. Queen Alicia continued that because Lloyd had lied, he must take responsibility for his words. Lloyd's father, anxious about this responsibility, thinks that even 2 lives would not be enough to pay for it. However, because Lloyd is their son, he kneels down, offering himself to be punished in Lloyd's place. Lloyd is stunned to see his father's actions. Marbella immediately joins her husband, asking the Queen to take their lives instead of Lloyd's. Lloyd interrupts them. How could they say something like that? With emotion, he declares that everything that happened was the result of his own actions and had nothing to do with them. However, Lloyd's father replies that parents are always responsible for their children's actions. Lloyd tries to argue again, but this time, Queen Alicia interrupts him. The Queen mentions that she heard Lloyd lost his strength due to a heart condition, but now he looks full of energy. As she suspected, Lloyd is someone who will keep pushing himself to his limits when there's something that needs to be done. However, the responsibility she means is not a pointless sacrifice of life, but rather to make that fake marriage real. Lloyd could only look at her in confusion, trying to understand the meaning of her words. However, before he could react, Alicia gave him a light slap on the face, bringing him back to his senses. The Queen asserted that Lloyd would become her husband, marry her, and work together for the good of the kingdom. However, with a flat expression, Lloyd rejected the proposal. Both of his parents started to panic as the argument between Lloyd and Queen Alicia grew more heated, especially about the workload being too heavy. In the end, Alicia admitted that she had anticipated this rejection. As an alternative, she asked Lloyd to resolve the conflict between 2 groups who had different opinions about the angel's message regarding the Eye of Summer. Lloyd, who didn't know where the revelation came from, immediately turned to the only person who might be responsible. However, as usual, Javier pretended not to know anything. In his confusion, Lloyd realized something. All this time, he had always seen himself as the only one who had to find a solution. But now he understood that this was not his task alone, but everyone's task. And together, Lloyd was sure they could overcome any obstacles. With full confidence, he asked Queen Alicia not to worry. Lloyd Frontera would solve this mess, even though he didn't know how yet. The first step was to obtain the Eye of Summer. He had to face that risk, protect his father and mother, and make sure they were safe. Before parting, Lloyd gave his parents a confident look. He was met with hopeful gazes from them. Queen Alicia looked at Lloyd's parents one last time before leaving. That look made them anxious again. However, what they saw was different from what they imagined. The Queen bowed respectfully, implying that she would meet them again in the future. The Frontera couple was confused again. while Lloyd felt that something was wrong. In the royal palace, the nobles were still busy debating the revelation. They complained about the chaos that always happened because of Lloyd. They mentioned that if Lloyd were there, this problem would be easier to discuss. At that moment, the hall doors swung open loudly. With a sharp gaze and a devilish aura, Lloyd entered the room. He asked if they were looking for him. On a bright morning inside the castle, Lloyd sat quietly on a chair in a room that looked dark, with a tense, hushed atmosphere. He was waiting for something that seemed very important. A ray of sunlight pierced into the room and fell directly on him, as if signaling that the moment had arrived. The nobles gathered to decide whether they would follow the angel's revelation or not. The meeting began with Count Aldez, the leader of the opposition group, expressing his opinion. He criticized the name of the meeting, calling it a failure because it did not include the Eye of Summit. He asked the scribe to change the name of the meeting by including that term. This disruption made Count Lawrence from the supporters group shout in frustration. He emphasized that this was not the time for jokes. After being reminded to raise his hand before speaking, he continued, stressing that the main issue should be the focus. However, he also argued that the term grand should be added to the name of the meeting. As a result, the clerk changed the name to the Grand Emergency Meeting of the Council of Nobles. However, this new name actually sparked even more heated debates among the nobles, pushing them further away from reaching an agreement. Hearing that pointless discussion, Lloyd began to miss his hometown. However, but for this very reason, he felt sure that their weaknesses would be easy to exploit. After a long debate, they finally agreed on a very long meeting name. Lord Toscano was the first to proclaim that the angelic revelation must be followed. He called it the will of heaven. However, many nobles still opposed it. One of them even accused Lloyd of simply taking advantage of the queen. Lloyd denied the accusation by calling himself a noble and loyal servant. However, he also warned that if they followed the revelation, the kingdom could appear weak in the eyes of neighboring countries and trigger a war. His statement made the nobles decide to end the meeting. They were more concerned about what they would have for dinner. Lloyd, frustrated, reminded them that if the revelation was ignored and brought disaster to the kingdom, he also could not accept it. However, the nobles instead begged him to make up his mind. Lloyd felt increasingly pressured, torn between accepting or rejecting the revelation, until finally, Lloyd declared that he had a brilliant idea. Everyone fell silent to listen. He explained that they could not be sure of the consequences of defying the revelation, but they knew the risks if they lost the dragon's eye. The kingdom's military strength would weaken. Lloyd proposed that if he had a weapon as powerful as that eye, he could take it without harming the kingdom. A nobleman asked what weapon Lloyd meant. He replied that the weapon was the Frontera Mountains, the mountain range that protects the southwest side of Magentano. The mountain is steep and impossible to cross by land. It forces the kingdom to spend a lot of money to go around and trade with other countries. However, if there were a route crossing the Frontera Mountains, the kingdom could become a center of trade between east and west. The nobles immediately complained, calling the idea impossible. Even Lloyd admitted that the main problem was the increased workload and the large budget. But he proposed that the Council of Nobles share the burden together. Once the topic of the budget was discussed, the nobles began to be tempted by the idea. They finally agreed that Lloyd Frontera would open a trade route through the mountains, and if he succeeded, he would receive the Summer Eye. Lloyd celebrated the success of his plan. Javier, by his side, commented that Lloyd seemed to be better at politics than construction. According to Lloyd, politics is easy. Just mention money and politicians will agree instantly. Javier realized that controlling the national budget gives as much power as authority itself. The queen, who listened to the opinions of the nobles, approved the development plan. However, he wondered how it was possible to cross the mountains his predecessors couldn't penetrate. Lloyd explained that it could be done by building a protected railway line, using a special rail system that would allow the train to climb mountain slopes and change direction at high altitudes. Alicia acknowledged his expertise, but questioned the safety of building a track on the mountain peak. Lloyd admitted the difficulty. However, he planned to build the route on a flat surface at the summit. The queen then asked about how to deal with the demon territory above the mountains. With confidence, Lloyd said that he already had a plan. Lloyd, Javier, and Draghi set out for the mountains. On the way, Lloyd asked what Javier knew about the demons. Javier answered that they live at the mountain peaks surrounded by ice pillars. They are known as terrifying creatures that eat humans, just like Lloyd had read in the novel. As Draghi flew higher, they approached the land of the Credo demons. In front of them, a whirlwind of ice blocked the way. Javier asked how they would get through it, and Lloyd answered briefly that they would break through. Javier smiled, feeling that his master was truly a frightening man. Draghi roared, clearing the whirlwind, and they passed into the blue sky. Lloyd felt disappointed because he had expected something darker and more frightening. However, the view below was actually beautiful. Javier warned Lloyd that he detected the presence of the demon race nearby. It turned out that two small demon children were near them. When they saw humans, the two demon children became hysterical and frightened. That made Lloyd upset. He shouted at them to stop crying because they were the demons, and Lloyd was just a human. In a remote land shrouded in the shadow of fear, the demon children froze in place as a giant dragon approached at incredible speed. Lloyd's face looked frightening, and his attempt to calm them down only made the fear grow even stronger. The demon children ran around aimlessly, avoiding the figure who, to them, seemed like one of their own. Lloyd's anger became even more uncontrollable as he saw the chaotic situation. Meanwhile, Javier looked on with doubt, wondering to himself whether Lloyd realized the impact of his behavior. The tension peaked when an adult demon suddenly appeared with a clear intention to attack. Javier, with his vigilance, immediately prepared himself to face the approaching threat. The adult demon landed calmly, displaying undeniable strength. Above him, a large dragon hovered, adding to the tense atmosphere. Lloyd, who descended from the dragon, meant to show he came in peace. But the appearance of more adult demons behind him made the situation worse. Tension peaked as 8 demon commanders introduced themselves, claiming to be guardians of the Holy Land and their people. Lloyd was annoyed by their large number, which broke the tradition of having only 4 demon commanders. The commanders firmly demanded that Lloyd leave their territory, while threatening and belittling him as a mere human commoner. Lloyd's anger burned upon hearing the insult, and the aura he emitted felt far more terrifying than the demons themselves. Javier stayed silent, realizing the situation was becoming more complicated. When Lloyd tried to explain his intention to speak, a new accusation arose from a young demon who accused Lloyd of hurting their child. The fear of the demon children grew stronger, and the atmosphere became even more chaotic. In desperation, Lloyd used a spell that immediately intimidated the demons. His orders to Javier were carried out swiftly, causing the attackers to be subdued in no time. When the battle was over, Lloyd stood confidently over the bodies of the defeated demons, signaling that now they could talk. However, the tension remained, especially for a demon girl who was crying near the unconscious bodies of her family. As Lloyd reflected on the situation, he began to understand that these demons lived in deep fear of humans. It turned out that the stories about them eating humans were just lies rooted in their dark past. Lloyd's thoughts were interrupted when a woman appeared, radiating an aura of great power. The woman, the demon queen named Artanis, revealed that their ancestors did indeed eat humans, but that was a past they had left behind. The demon queen firmly suggested that they continue their discussion at the palace. On the way to the palace, Lloyd received an explanation about the demons' dark past, when they were forced to attack humans in order to survive in the wasteland. However, a major change was made by their former leader, who chose to farm despite the extremely limited resources. At the table, the Demon Queen explained their dilemma. Opening a trade route through their land would destroy the barrier that protects them, causing them to lose their only home. Although Lloyd found it strange why the demons couldn't move to more fertile land, the Demon Queen explained that human hatred toward them was still so strong, casting a dark shadow that still haunted them. With deep emotion, the Demon Queen asked Lloyd to free them from this suffering. Lloyd, who initially only wanted to open a trade route, began to think more deeply about how to resolve this conflict. He realized that the solution was not just in trade, but also in creating a new path so that humans and demons could live side by side. In his heart, Lloyd devised a grand plan. convinced that he could solve this problem without creating more conflict. The Demon Queen also agreed to lift the barrier if Lloyd could ensure they could live outside this land. A new beginning for demons and humans was finally on the horizon. After arriving at the Demon Queen's castle, the atmosphere felt tense and full of uncertainty. The Demon Queen stated that they needed to first assess the feasibility of the proposed plan. Lloyd observed the Demon Queen closely, feeling an unavoidable awkwardness. The Demon Queen's full title felt long, making him hesitant to ask further questions. With a bit of confusion, he gathered the courage to ask how far the Demon Queen could read human minds. The Demon Queen explained that she did not possess such an ability, but could only catch brief glimpses of the future, a hereditary power from their ancestors used to predict the weather and wheat harvests, important knowledge for their agricultural life. Lloyd was surprised and amazed by the wisdom of their ancestors, who could use that ability to survive. Although his sense of awe remained, Lloyd's attention was now focused on the Demon Queen's ability. He asked more seriously about how far into the future she could see. The Demon Queen's answer was a bit disappointing. She could only see a maximum of 24 hours into the future. Lloyd's curiosity grew even more, and he asked if the Demon Queen could predict accidents or other major events. In the deep silence, the Demon Queen looked at Lloyd and revealed that even though she couldn't change fate, she might be able to prevent accidents that were already visible in the future. Those words gave Lloyd a little hope. Even though the Demon Queen's abilities were limited, there was a chance to gain more time to find a solution. The Demon Queen then added that this ability would only be available if Lloyd freed her people first. She explained that force or threats would not be able to sway the demons, and the only way to get their approval was to choose a representative to speak on their behalf. With full confidence, Lloyd promised to show the demons that they could live well outside the barrier that confined them. Outside the castle, the weather was clear, but the atmosphere was tense. A little demon girl looked frightened. Lloyd tried to apologize for the fear he had unintentionally caused her. However, the more he spoke, the more afraid of him the girl became. Seeing this, Jaffier couldn't hold back and scolded Lloyd for frightening an innocent child. Lloyd was confused by Jaffier's reaction. Without saying much, Jaffier approached the little girl and offered to take her to see the world outside her settlement. The little girl looked confused. However, she wasn't afraid of Jaffier. Lloyd felt disgusted by Jaffier's way of always solving problems by being gentle. A few moments later, they left a demon's settlement. They flew on a dragon on the next leg of their journey. The Demon Queen began to tell a story about how the little girl was more afraid of humans than of anyone else. One day, the little girl saw a human family having dinner together. She didn't understand why the demons considered humans to be evil, because the family looked very kind. She watched the child in that family playing with a ball, and she chuckled softly when one of the children cried after being hit on the head by the ball. But that happiness quickly vanished when heavy snow started falling. It made it difficult to find food. In that bad weather, the little girl saw a father who was confused and didn't know what to do. The little girl ran back to her house and soon appeared on the street. She brought a basket of fruit that she wanted to give to help ease the burden of that family. However, a loud shout was directed at her, revealing the arrival of the demon. This made the little girl very scared and disappointed. People immediately panicked and ran to their homes. A man tried to attack the little girl. However, she managed to avoid the attack. Her fear grew deeper as she ran away, chased by people who only wanted to hurt her because she was a demon. The little girl transformed into something far more terrifying, making people back away. Even so, she remembered what she was taught since childhood: never attack humans. With strong determination, the little girl ran away at incredible speed, leaving behind the fading screams of the people. Back to the present. Lloyd and the Demon Queen are flying on a dragon toward their destination. Lloyd is moved by the heartbreaking story. They are getting closer to Frontera, the place they want to go. After landing, they start walking around the Frontera area. The little girl is still scared, feeling terrified every time she sees someone. When Lloyd greets a resident, the girl closes her eyes in fear. Meanwhile, the orc there talks about needing to dry off after training. The little girl stares blankly while the orc leaves. Confused, he asks why there is a demon in the human settlement, and the Demon Queen answers that it's an orc. Not long after, the skeletons enthusiastically welcome Lloyd's arrival. A large dragon flies over them, complaining about being late to clean up the settlement. The little girl then turns to Lloyd and says that she suspects Lloyd is the Demon King because of his scary face. That statement makes Lloyd confused and annoyed, and he then asks the little girl if there is something wrong with his face. The leader of the White Cavalry and Themis welcome Lloyd, with enthusiasm radiating from their faces. The joyful atmosphere marked Lloyd's return to their territory, as if it was an important moment they didn't want to miss. However, Lloyd just stood there with a confused expression. He stared at their clothes, which looked very neat. His confusion deepened as he tried to remember if there was an event that made them dress like that. Unexpectedly, the two people explained that it was the wedding day. On the other hand, the little demon girl nervously held the edge of the Demon Queen's clothes. Her gaze was fixed on the humans around her, a sight she rarely encountered. The leader of the White Cavalry, who noticed the girl's presence, watched closely. That gaze made the girl lower her head, trying to avoid eye contact. The leader's attention then shifted to the Demon Queen. There was something different about her, an aura that was hard to ignore. In a firm tone, he asked, "Are both of them from the demon race?" The Demon Queen answered calmly. She confirmed the truth. Meanwhile, the little girl by her side looked frightened. Worry filled her mind. She imagined what might happen if the human in front of them found out their identities. The leader of the White Cavalry frowned, looking at the Demon Queen with an unreadable gaze. However, after a moment, he just said a few words and then walked away. As if it wasn't something that needed to be questioned, he went back to talking with Tem, leaving the little girl still frozen in place. She tried to understand why humans were acting so differently from what she'd imagined. The other residents kept greeting Lloyd warmly. Along the way, a dwarf approached the little demon girl with a wide smile. He praised the girl's beauty and asked about her origins. The girl replied that she was from the Frontera mountains. Kratos. Hearing that answer, the two dwarves chuckled, mentioning that she was a descendant of demons. Then she continued walking without fear. Two little children saw the little demon girl from afar. Their eyes sparkled with excitement. They guessed that the girl was a newcomer and decided to invite her to play ball. With quick steps, they approached her and enthusiastically invited her to join them. One of them even asked Lloyd if they could play with the girl. Lloyd, with a straight face, gave a simple but clear answer. They could just ask her directly. The two little kids approached the girl energetically. However, the girl's response seemed hesitant. She was thinking about her horns and her different skin color. It made her wonder why they were so friendly. One of the little kids looked surprised to hear her hesitation. Then, loudly, he said that things like that were normal in the Frontera region. His words were firm. He asked the girl not to worry about such small things and to quickly decide whether she wanted to join or not. Those words startled the girl. The bad image she had of humans all this time began to crumble. She turned to look at the Demon Queen, who was still holding her hand. The Queen returned her gaze with a gentle smile, silently giving her approval. Slowly, the Demon Queen loosened her grip, letting the little girl play. The little demon girl finally joined the game. Laughter and joy filled the air as the human child and the little horned girl played together. The adults watching from a distance smiled as they saw the scene. It was a rare moment full of harmony. However, the cheerfulness suddenly changed when the little demon girl, who was too excited, unconsciously used her demon power to kick the ball. Her kick was so strong that the ball shot out at high speed, hitting the stone tower and causing part of the building to collapse. The little girl was shocked and panicked, afraid of how the humans around her would react. Instead of getting angry, the other kids gave her a thumbs up and praised her strength. They called the girl their team's future star. That test made the little girl smile widely. She felt accepted, something she rarely experienced. In the distance, the Demon Queen watched with sparkling eyes. That event gave her confidence that she and her kind had a chance to adapt in Frontera. Unexpectedly, she knelt before Lloyd with great respect. The Demon Queen begged Lloyd to lead her and the entire demon tribe, calling him the new demon ruler. Lloyd was silent, confused by the request. Before he could say anything, a purple light appeared, enveloping the Demon Queen's body. The light shot upward and then came back down, entering Lloyd's body. The system immediately sent a notification that Lloyd had inherited the title of Demon King from Demon Queen Artanis V. With mixed feelings, Lloyd felt a new power flowing within him. Lloyd let out a shout, accompanied by a burst of energy radiating strongly from his body. The explosive aura created a wave of tremendous power, shaking everything around him. The ground trembled, the air whistled sharply, and that power felt so intimidating. After the explosion of power subsided, Lloyd's body changed drastically. A pair of long horns rose from his head, and a pair of large, jet-black wings spread majestically from his back. His appearance now truly reflected the figure of a dignified and terrifying Demon King. In an instant, the system sent a notification that the ability to look like the Demon King had been obtained. It complemented the recent physical transformation. However, Lloyd's happiness only lasted for a moment. The information from the system revealed that this ability was merely an external appearance change, without any additional power. This realization left Lloyd stunned. He wondered about the true usefulness of that ability. A sense of disappointment enveloped him when he realized that the change brought no significant impact other than his appearance resembling the Demon King. Behind him, Jaffier only looked at Lloyd with a flat expression. He didn't show any sign of surprise or sympathy. When he returned to the crowd, the townspeople didn't show any different reaction to his changed appearance. To them, Lloyd had always looked like a Demon King, even from the very beginning. This only reinforced the image that was already ingrained in their minds. Lloyd, realizing this, felt annoyed. He wondered if he had always looked frightening in their eyes. In the midst of his confusion, Lloyd found himself standing before the Demon Queen, who was still kneeling respectfully. Lloyd tried to reassure the Queen that he was not worthy to be the Demon King. He felt his strength was not enough to lead. However, the Queen confidently stated that a leader's worthiness is not measured by strength alone, but by the ability to bring about change and maintain balance. The system appeared again with a new notification, stating that the previous Demon King would obey every order from the new Demon King, even if the order was for menial work. This realization rekindled Lloyd's spirit. With his fangs peeking through his smile, he decided to accept his role as the Demon King and was determined to carry it out well. Sometime later, the atmosphere turned cheerful as Emily and Kuga's wedding took place. The event was filled with laughter and happiness. The guests joined in celebrating the special moment. Lloyd and Javier sat near the bride and groom, giving warm applause. At that moment, Lloyd explained to Javier that his horns and wings could actually be hidden at any time, allowing him to appear just like an ordinary human. This was a relief for him. As the celebration continued, Lloyd observed Emily and Kuga, who looked happy. That moment brought back Lloyd's memories of a novel he once read. In that novel, the Frontera family was depicted as being destroyed, with all of its followers sold as slaves. Emily's fate was even written to be darker, as she was sold as a slave at a young age. This reality ignited Lloyd's determination to change the grim storyline. Quickly, he left the party with Javier, riding Draghi as they sped away from the Frontera territory. On the other hand, the demon race, after hearing the story from Lyra, the little demon girl, and Demon Queen Artanis, finally agreed to migrate to the Frontera territory. Preparations were made immediately, and in a short time, the entire demon race was ready to depart. Beneath the Demon King's palace, there was a mysterious artifact called T-Bong Hook. This artifact has a strange function, which is to serve as a territorial barrier. The Demon Queen inserted her finger into the mouth of the artifact. It appeared to gently bite while making a strange sound. Within seconds, the tornado barrier surrounding the demon territory slowly disappeared. Its effect was that simple. Lloyd suspected the artifact was one of the dragon's creations, which often lacked clear purpose. The Demon Queen then handed the artifact to Lloyd as the official symbol of his leadership. The artifact had a unique ability to create cold air anytime and anywhere. Lloyd accepted the artifact with a sly smile, imagining ways to use it in the future. Not long after that, in a snowy mountain range, Lloyd stood before a group of demons who looked at him with hope in their eyes. He announced that before migrating to Frontera, they must first spend 1 year building a trade route in the region. Although it was quiet at first, Gradually, the demons began to understand that this was an important step. The Demon Queen quickly realized that Lloyd planned to use them for a greater purpose. Lloyd himself understood very well the potential of the powerful demon race. They were able to survive even with little food, and their physical strength even surpassed that of the weakest orc. One of the Demon Queen's followers felt confused by Lloyd's attitude, which seemed different from the previous stories. The Lloyd he had heard about all this time was a warm and kind-hearted figure. However, the Demon Queen reluctantly admitted that Lloyd was actually a true demon with a pragmatic way of thinking. With the power of 3,000 members of the demon race, the construction of the trade route finally began. Lloyd, full of ambition, stepped forward to make it happen. Freezing time and starting construction immediately does sound efficient, but if they were going to spend a year building the road in that area, thorough preparations had to be made. The first step that needed to be prepared was to build settlements that could accommodate and feed the workers for a full year. This is very important so that the project can run smoothly. Since time would be frozen, all food production needed had to be done within the project area itself. On top of a steep cliff, Lloyd stood tall. Behind him, the Demon Queen and Javier stood as his guards. Below the cliff, many demon races gathered, waiting patiently to hear what Lloyd was going to say. Lloyd slowly moved his hand, sweeping the air in front of his face. With that motion, he covered one of his eyes. And behind the hand covering his eye, Lloyd's eye changed shape and color dramatically. He could feel the power flowing. With a dramatic gesture, Lloyd opened his hand, revealing a commanding expression. Slowly, his body transformed into the form of the Demon King. Horns grew on his head, and large wings spread gracefully on his back. He stood with authority, announcing that he was the Demon King and that it was time to begin the work. However, the air felt silent. Only the sound of the wind could be heard. Lloyd remained standing tall, with his wings spread wide, radiating unshakable charisma. In his heart, although he had some doubts, Lloyd felt proud of the pose he had just struck. He realized how extraordinary his appearance was at that moment. However, his daydream was soon interrupted by Javier's voice, which sounded clearly from behind him. With his face turning red from embarrassment, Javier reminded him that the pose Lloyd had just done was very embarrassing. According to him, only little kids could admire a pose like that. Not wanting to look foolish, Lloyd tried to defend himself. He explained that the names Demon and Demon King already carried that aura of authority. Those movements and poses actually reinforced the elegant and authoritative impression he was supposed to show. Lloyd then turned to the Demon Queen, hoping that Her Majesty would have a different opinion. However, the Demon Queen didn't seem much different from Javier. His face turned red from embarrassment. Seeing that, Javier said sincerely that it seemed the Demon Queen felt the same way. Seeing the reactions of his two aides, Lloyd didn't feel discouraged. He took a deep breath, then convinced himself that the demon race would eventually listen to and respect him. With fiery determination, Lloyd shouted loudly, asking all the Demon Queens to listen to him. He hoped his call would impress them and make them submit to his authority. However, once again, only silence enveloped the place. The Demon Queens seemed unaffected, not even showing any reaction to Lloyd's passionate call. Lloyd began to feel annoyed. To himself, he wondered if they didn't see that he had horns and wings, and that he was the Demon King. Why didn't they consider him important? The demons looked awkward, glancing at each other in confusion. None of them seemed impressed or realized the importance of Lloyd standing before them. Lloyd then looked at the Demon Queen, wondering if he had to defeat the strongest demon among them to get their attention. The Demon Queen explained that their ancestor, Lord Kratos, had forbidden physical duels between demons. However, there is a certain type of duel that is allowed and even encouraged. This duel tests sharp instincts, quick decision-making, and extraordinary reflexes, comparable to the strength of a god and eyesight as sharp as an eagle's. The Demon Queen emphasized that victory in this duel is determined by superiority in all of those aspects. With a serious expression, she told Lloyd that this duel is called rock, paper, scissors. Lloyd, who was listening to the explanation, felt a little confused. In his mind, he wondered whether he was the one who didn't understand, or if the culture of the demons was just strange. Lloyd then told the Demon Queen that if this duel could really satisfy the demons, then he would do it. With a loud voice, Lloyd shouted again, emphasizing that he didn't want to cooperate with anyone who had no intention of working. He was confident that he could make all the demons feel enthusiastic about joining this project. However, since this would take time, he challenged the strongest demon among them to participate in a sacred duel. If Lloyd wins, all the demons must work on this project with great enthusiasm. Lloyd then asked the strongest demon among them to step forward and duel with him. One of the demons stepped forward. He was one of the 8 demon generals. With a triumphant smile, the demon said that they all should prepare for the Demon King's humiliation. Lloyd was unfazed and instead smiled with determination. He was ready to face this challenge. The demons started getting excited, banging their staffs on the ground loudly while shouting, "Rock, paper, scissors!" The shouts and cheers echoed throughout the arena, heating up the atmosphere and making the demons even more excited to witness the upcoming duel. Lyra, a little demon girl, cried anxiously, saying with concern that they had to stop this fight because the Demon King was a good person. A demon woman nearby tried to calm her down, saying that this was a sacred duel and they could only be spectators. The 2 fighters stood facing each other. Their gazes were full of courage. They began stretching and warming up. They prepared their fingers for the tense duel. Jafir, still confused, asked the Demon Queen about the type of duel this was. The Demon Queen patiently explained that first, Jafir needed to understand the basics of this game. A clenched fist or rock represents a hammer that shakes the earth. 2 fingers represent scissors that can split the sky. And an open palm represents paper, which, although it seems weak, possesses a certain power. The strong hammer will crush the scissors. Sharp scissors can cut paper. Paper can neutralize the hammer. Before the rock, paper, scissors duel begins, both participants choose a hand sign for each hand. After the signal is given, they will show the hand shape they have chosen and reveal the remaining shape to determine who wins. The winner will be determined based on the result of their last match. Jafir looks anxious. Even though on the surface, this game might sound like something only children usually play, however, in reality, this method is very advantageous for those who have a physical advantage, especially in terms of strength. Both participants in this duel have abilities equivalent to a sword master. In fact, even the slightest muscle movement or the subtlest change in breathing rhythm can be used to predict the opponent's movements. With the feeling of tension, Jafir began to wonder how Lloyd or Kim Suho would face him. He hoped that Lloyd had a hidden trick that could bring him victory. The Demon Queen raised her voice, giving a command for both duel participants to get ready. Slowly, she began to count down. Lloyd quickly diverted his attention, hiding his hands behind his back. His face looked serious and tense. On the other side, the Demon Commander did the same. Their eyes met, full of determination and readiness. Seeing this, Jafir felt his worry deepen. He could sense the precise muscle distribution from Lloyd. Jafir realized that Lloyd had chosen the scissors shape with both of his hands. This would end in a draw, or one of them would lose. Suddenly, Lloyd's voice rang out loudly. He shouted with a tense expression that was characteristic of him. "Shoot!" he yelled. It thundered through the air. His opponent's reaction was very clear. In a hurry, his hands opened wide and his eyes closed, as if he couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. It turns out there is an expression that can be so terrifying in this world. On the other side, Lyra, the little demon girl, along with the other demons, watched the fight tensely. All attention was focused on the ongoing duel. The Demon Commander began to feel uneasy, realizing that he had chosen the paper shape with both hands, which now put him in a losing position. Meanwhile, Lloyd smiled in triumph. Both of his hands formed scissors, decisively defeating his opponent. The victory was undeniable. Lloyd grinned widely, making sure that the outcome of this battle would not change anymore. The Demon Commander was stunned for a moment, unable to believe the reality that he had lost in this sacred duel. Weakly, he fell to his knees on the ground, still keeping his hand in the paper shape. Lloyd looked at him with a sense of triumph, while Jafir, who was watching closely, began to think that something was wrong. He felt there was cheating in the way his master fought. The Demon Queen, who watched the entire duel in awe, couldn't hold back her tears. In her amazement, she called Lloyd a legendary figure who could win a duel even before the game began. Jafir was shocked when he heard those words. He didn't expect to encounter so many oddities in the culture of the demon race. Back in the arena, the demon commander, having accepted his defeat, hesitantly knelt before Lloyd. With a loud voice, he admitted his defeat and declared that he now knelt before the Demon King, followed by the other demons behind him. Lloyd, feeling that victory had been achieved, swaggered, bowing gracefully yet still showing authority. Lloyd then activated his Demon King mode. Majestic horns and large wings grew on his body. He looked at the demons with a clearly intimidating expression, then gave a firm order to all of them to immediately carve the surrounding snowy mountains into tiered terraces. This time, the order was met with extraordinary enthusiasm by the demons. Only Jafir noticed his master's slightly unruly style, but he still couldn't deny the power radiating from him. Some time passed, and Draghi flew gracefully through the air. On his back, Lloyd sat with a pensive expression, accompanied by Jafir and the Demon Queen. Lloyd's mind was consumed by worries that continued to haunt him. Queen Alicia had once reminded him that everything he had changed would slowly return to its original form. This phenomenon of fate restoration was happening faster than he had anticipated. The changes made by Lloyd clearly affected the future. However, there was one major concern that kept troubling his mind: Queen Alicia's fall into darkness. Even so, up until that point, there were no clear signs that it would happen anytime soon. Lloyd kept thinking about the safety of his family and everyone in his territory. Until the resource supply system for development was completed, he couldn't freeze time, and his worries kept increasing. He was worried about what might go wrong. In the past, he was deeply depressed. He felt there was no way left to save everyone. However, things are very different now. Glancing toward Demon Queen Artanis, Lloyd felt a glimmer of hope, because now he had someone who could foresee the future, even if only for one day. After flying for quite a while, they finally arrived at Lloyd's residence in the Frontera region. Lloyd immediately introduced Artanis to his parents. They were warmly welcomed. Lloyd's mother even praised Artanis's beauty. However, Artanis looked a little surprised, because she didn't expect that her being a demon would not be an issue for Lloyd's family. With a serious face, Lloyd then explained that the phenomenon of fate restoration was drawing near. Therefore, a major solution was being prepared. However, if something bad happens before all the preparations are complete, everything will be in vain. Artanis was brought to the Lloyd family's house to carry out his important duty, which was to check everyone's fate every day. Lloyd also decided to call Julian and Siraja Sirajade to temporarily stay in the Frontera region so that Artanis could check their fate as well. Once preparations at home were done, Lloyd quickly began getting ready for the big project. The first step was to bring veteran civil engineers from Frontera to guide the demons in the construction work. Sergeant Greg and Cortigus also were put in charge of the project's mechanics and machinery. The work also relied heavily on the orcs' help in the construction project. However, when Kuga intended to join, Lloyd gently refused, asking Kuga to stay at home and enjoy his honeymoon. The construction project finally began, with the 8 demon generals, who were swordmasters, helping to prepare the land for the settlement. Their great strength made the land clearing process go quickly. It only took half a day. The veteran engineers led the demons effectively and efficiently, so the construction of the settlement huts went smoothly and quickly. In less than a month, the settlement village for the workers was completed, and Lloyd couldn't contain his pride. He struck a pose that made everyone around him feel awkward, but that was his habit. The next day, Lloyd flew with Goming. On top of Goming, Lloyd used his abilities to inspect the route that would become the railway. He planned to freeze time and start the railway project the next day. Meanwhile, at Lloyd's residence in the Frontera region, Artanis was carrying out his duties, checking what fate held for the next 24 hours. For that, Artanis had to stare at the person whose fate he was going to read without blinking for 5 minutes. Although it looked strange, Lloyd's parents cooperated well, staying silent and watching Artanis as he continued to stare at them without blinking. However, not long after, Artanis began to tremble. Tears started to flow, and a strange smile appeared on his face. His increasingly dramatic expression made the Baron worried, suspecting that something bad was about to happen. Artanis's face grew more intense, and his teeth chattered loudly. That made the Baron even more uneasy, preparing himself mentally for any bad possibilities that might come. Suddenly, Artanis screamed hysterically. His cheeks turned red from embarrassment. His hand covered his mouth, trying to hide his shock. The chaos made Lloyd's parents panic as well, not knowing what was happening. Embarrassed, Artanis admitted that he felt anxious and tense after seeing the spot on Lloyd's parents' bed. This blunt statement immediately made both of them feel embarrassed, and they covered their faces with their hands. Then, Julian and Saraja D arrived. They entered the room, confused to see their parents rushing out with red faces from embarrassment. When Artanis began to read their fate, his body trembled again. This time, openly, Artanis said that this couple was very good at doing it. The two children couldn't contain their embarrassment either. They immediately covered their faces and lowered their heads, feeling even more awkward about what had just happened. On the other hand, with the Demon King mode enveloping him, Lloyd stood on the cliff, surrounded by strong winds, while Javier stood behind him. Lloyd raised his voice enthusiastically, announcing to everyone that the work on the temporary settlement, which would be occupied for a year, had been completed. The joyful cheers of the workers echoed below, welcoming the good news. The workers involved came from diverse backgrounds: orcs, demons, humans, monsters, and various other races. However, they all worked together with the same goal: to create a better future for everyone. Of course, the elves were not involved in this project, considering the amount of environmental destruction that occurred, which would certainly make them uncomfortable. After making sure everything was going according to plan, Lloyd shouted loudly again, telling the workers that the real work was just about to begin. Their spirits burned even brighter, with their hands raised high and cheering enthusiastically. Lloyd turned to Javier, telling him that he would head to the center point of the site to freeze time. He asked Javier to take care of the other tasks, including reinforcing the steel that would be used. Although worried, Javier wanted to accompany Lloyd. But with confidence, Lloyd assured him that as a swordmaster with the power of a song from the depths of hell, he wouldn't be disturbed by anything, not even a mountain monster. Not long after that, Draghi flew low and approached Lloyd. With a swift movement, Draghi stuck out his tongue, carrying a letter. Lloyd acknowledged that Draghi's courier duty was finished, and now Draghi was reassigned to help with the construction section. Carefully, Lloyd opened the letter that Draghi had brought and smiled as he read its contents. It turned out that the letter was a report from Demon Queen Artanis. Artanis reported that Lloyd's family would be safe for the next 24 hours. It was news that made Lloyd feel relieved. In her report, Artanis also mentioned that she had taught demon farming techniques to the residents of the Frontera region. Everyone, both demons and others, lived in harmony without any prejudice against each other. In addition, Artanis delivered reports from the demon generals about demon children who wanted to see more of the world and were very happy with this situation. Artanis ended his report with a prayer for Lloyd's happiness, which left him speechless, overwhelmed by mixed feelings. The system informed Lloyd that a new species had been unlocked. The remaining demon descendants have fulfilled their wishes. Lloyd's reputation increased by 100 points, and he smiled, feeling quite happy to hear the news. He raised his index finger high into the air and activated his time freezing ability. The system notified him that time freezing had been successfully activated, and 3,000 reputation points had been used. At that moment, a large barrier appeared, surrounding the area that was now frozen. However, as the freezing process continued, Lloyd felt pain in his chest. The process began to spread, causing unexpected pain. The snowfall grew heavier, making the situation even worse. Lloyd fell to the snowy ground, feeling the pain in his chest becoming more and more unbearable. He grumbled to himself, not expecting the heart attack to come sooner than he had anticipated. Inside his body, Heart of Winter felt sorrow and apologized to Lloyd, even though Lloyd didn't mind. He knew that this was the consequence of the ability he possessed, the ability to stop time, which also gave him the chance to face the phenomenon of fate restoration. Even so, Lloyd remained confident that everything would be fine. With great effort, Lloyd tried to get up, feeling cold and confused about the origin of this snowstorm. He had already frozen time. However, the situation only got worse. While trying to get up, his body fell back to the ground. He struggled to move his body. He thought of Javier. He had to be able to call him, to tell him to come and save him. If only he could use his mana to summon him. But suddenly, Lloyd felt his body being lifted. He wondered if it was Javier carrying him. When he opened his eyes, he found someone he knew very well carrying him. In the midst of the snowstorm that was getting stronger, Lloyd felt calm and said to himself, It's always you." Feeling safe, he decided to rest for a while. It turned out that the one who came to save Lloyd was Queen Alicia. With determination, Queen Alicia carried Lloyd, trying to save him from the looming danger, even though the snowstorm raged even harder around them. In the temporary settlement, the snowstorm grew more intense. The biting cold made Bengal keep sneezing. His body trembled from the extreme cold. Even so, he didn't stop working hard, helping Lloyd in the ongoing steel production process. Javier, who was standing not far from Bengal, observed the situation with concern. He decided to approach Bengal and suggested that he take a break for a while, not to push himself too hard. According to Javier, in such bad weather, producing steel was not possible. While gazing at the mountains stretching in the distance, Javier thought to himself. As soon as the time-freezing dome formed, he felt Kim Suho's mana become unstable. He paused for a moment, realizing that Lloyd's frozen heart might be the cause. His instincts urged him to go and check on Lloyd immediately. Sometime earlier, a woman approached Javier. Queen Alicia, who happened to be visiting Lloyd's project. Now, she was complaining because she couldn't return to the kingdom due to the appearance of an ice dome blocking the way. Javier immediately knelt down and explained that the ice dome was meant to stop the flow of time from the outside, creating a zone where time stood still. Queen Alicia, confused, asked if Lloyd was the one who caused this. Javier confirmed it without hesitation. After hearing that explanation, Queen Alicia asked how she could get out of the ice dome. Javier then apologized and explained further that Queen Alicia was trapped inside and could only get out after the construction was finished, which was estimated to take at least 1 year. Javier tried to convince Queen Alicia that 1 year inside this dome would feel like just 1 day outside. Queen Alicia, although surprised, could only smile while holding her head. She pondered, wondering if Lloyd's current actions showed that he truly intended to become the real Demon King. Seeing the reactions of the demons working around them, the workers paused their activities for a moment and stared at Queen Alicia with puzzled looks, trying to understand the meaning of her words. At that moment, Queen Alicia looked at the demons who were working and began to realize that, although they still seemed like part of Lloyd's army, they had indeed become part of a larger demon kingdom. This confirmed that Lloyd had truly become the real Demon King. Then, she asked Javier about Lloyd's whereabouts. Javier explained that Lloyd was climbing the mountain to inspect the construction route. In the distance, the mountain peak appeared to be covered by an increasingly fierce snowstorm. Without hesitation, Queen Alicia announced that she would go alone to look for Lloyd. Back in the present, Javier, who was still observing the mountain, sensed instability in Lloyd's mana. In addition, there was also a strong aura approaching. It seemed that Queen Alicia had managed to find Lloyd in the mountain area. Javier felt more at ease after realizing that. He smiled. He decided that he didn't need to worry and wouldn't interfere any further. On the mountain, inside a cave hidden among piles of snow, Lloyd woke up from his long rest. He was lying on a fairly comfortable mat, wrapped in a thick coat. When he sat up, Lloyd realized that he was inside a cave. He felt lucky because near the place where he fell, there was a cave that could provide temporary shelter. However, as soon as he noticed the clothes he was wearing, his confusion grew. He didn't recognize the clothes and felt that they looked too luxurious for him. In his confusion, Lloyd briefly thought that maybe Javier was the one who had saved him. When he turned around to ask, he was shocked to find Queen Alicia lying asleep near him, wearing only her underwear to keep herself warm from the cold air. Lloyd was stunned. He finally realized that the clothes he was wearing now belonged to Queen Alicia. A few moments later, with a tense expression, Lloyd carefully returned the clothes that belonged to Queen Alicia to their original place. After that, he hurriedly left in a panic, feeling anxious that Queen Alicia's kindness might bring him more work. However, a deep pain returned to his heart. Lloyd fell, knelt down, and clutched his chest, feeling the pain intensify. In his heart, he realized that even the slightest movement was enough to make the coldness gripping his heart even more unbearable. Suddenly, Queen Alicia's voice was heard from behind him. With a worried tone, Queen Alicia stated that Lloyd's condition was very bad. The voice made Lloyd even more panicked, and he felt the uncertainty weighing on him even more. Queen Alicia was now awake and sitting gracefully. She gestured for Lloyd to come closer, and he immediately responded with his characteristic bow, showing respect to the queen. However, Queen Alicia wanted Lloyd to approach more quickly. Lloyd, still bowing, quickened his steps with care. As he was almost there, Queen Alicia changed her position, turned her gaze to Lloyd, and asked him to lie down at her feet, signaling with a pat of her hand on her lap. Lloyd, surprised, felt confused, but in the end, he obeyed the order, lying down with his feet facing Queen Alicia. However, Queen Alicia seemed dissatisfied and questioned whether Lloyd was mocking her. Lloyd thought he had followed the order correctly. Queen Alicia then clarified her intention, asking Lloyd to place his head on her lap. Lloyd, who was increasingly confused, felt even more trapped by his confusion. The more Lloyd thought about it, the less clear it became to him what he was supposed to do. Finally, having run out of patience, Queen Alicia forcefully pulled Lloyd's head and placed it on her lap, surprising him. After that chaos, Queen Alicia gently placed her hand on Lloyd's chest, calming the situation. A flow of mana from Queen Alicia's body then entered Lloyd's body, easing the cold that pierced his heart. Lloyd fell silent and felt the gentle yet strong flow of energy entering his body. He admitted to himself that to master a technique like this, it required exceptional skill in the Azrahan technique. Queen Alicia explained that she discovered this technique while practicing swordsmanship with Javier, and that both Lloyd and Javier had the same way of strengthening their power, which was by absorbing external mana for use. Lloyd, who was still lying down, praised Queen Alicia's ability to master the Azrahan technique just by observing. He also realized that the mana flowing from Queen Alicia's body felt much gentler compared to Javier's mana, which usually made him dizzy and nauseous. Queen Alicia asked if Lloyd felt more comfortable now, and Lloyd nodded, feeling much better. With a sincere smile, Queen Alicia was happy to see Lloyd's condition improving. However, Lloyd began to feel awkward. He rolled away from Queen Alicia, as if trying to avoid the increasingly charged situation. Queen Alicia managed to stop Lloyd's movement, gently held his head, and pulled him back to his original position. Lloyd tried to break free, but Queen Alicia's grip was too strong. Calmly, she asked Lloyd to stay still and not go anywhere. Queen Alicia then closed her eyes for a moment and reminded Lloyd that sometimes just resting is enough to make things better. Lloyd's cheeks began to blush, feeling very awkward in the situation. In his discomfort, he asked Queen Alicia about the reason she came all this way. With a deep breath, Queen Alicia explained that she came to see how Lloyd was doing. Lloyd then laughed awkwardly, assuring Queen Alicia that she didn't need to worry because the mission entrusted to him was going smoothly. Even though there was a snowstorm that caused some trouble, the construction was still in good condition. However, Queen Alicia still asked in a mysterious tone, "Does Lloyd really not understand, or is he just pretending not to know?" Lloyd looked confused, not understanding the meaning of Queen Alicia's words. Queen Alicia then mentioned that Lloyd was indeed smart, quick, talented, and perceptive. However, when it comes to being proposed to by a woman, no matter how honest and sincere it seems he can't quite grasp it. Lloyd was still stunned hearing Queen Alicia's words. He remembered the time when Queen Alicia came to his house and asked him to marry her and become a prince in the Magentano kingdom. When it happened, Lloyd was surprised, wondering if the request was really serious. Lloyd even thought that it was a tactic from Queen Alicia to make him work harder, and that was the only reasonable explanation for him. Suddenly, a strong tremor was felt inside the cave, causing small rocks to fall. Queen Alicia, who felt it too, wondered if this was an earthquake. Lloyd, who was starting to feel better, immediately got up, realizing that something was wrong. He thought that something was causing this snowstorm and earthquake. He suspected that this was a deliberate disturbance. With an evil smile, Lloyd stated that he didn't expect anyone would dare to disrupt his construction project in this way. Queen Alicia, who saw Lloyd's change in attitude, smiled, feeling proud because Lloyd quickly realized what was happening. With his demonic expression, Lloyd swore to demand compensation 10 times over from the party responsible for delaying his project. Queen Alicia closed her eyes, silently hoping that Lloyd wouldn't use his crazy expression too often. A few moments earlier, atop the towering snowy mountains, an energy began to gather in the air. Slowly, the energy became more concentrated at one point, forming a large whirlwind. Suddenly, an old man with a long white beard appeared, wearing a crown on his head. He was the spirit of the Frontera Mountains, known as Frontrush. This creature had been allied with the mountain wilderness for centuries, creating such a harsh environment that no human could survive. All of this was to protect the balance of the surrounding environment. In the past, when a group of demons came to this area, Frontrush didn't really care. When their guardian dragon created a dimensional barrier, the demons were trapped inside it, and that wasn't a problem for the spirit. But this time, Frontrush paid attention to the presence of Lloyd and Javier in a different way. In the eyes of the spirit, Lloyd looked like a villain with an arrogant expression, even though the reality wasn't much different. Javier also didn't escape Frontrush's attention. To him, Javier was a swordsman who looked more like a gangster than a warrior. In Frontrush's eyes, Lloyd looked like he was cruelly ordering Javier to level the mountain to start his project. Javier, with a fierce look, immediately carried out the order, firing an enormous amount of mana energy at a mountain, causing a massive explosion that destroyed the mountain. From Frontrush's perspective, both Lloyd and Javier seemed to enjoy the destruction of nature they caused. Smiling wickedly amidst the ruined mountain, the spirit also felt furious and angry at what those two humans had done. In its view, the workers there looked like a group of criminals who were destroying and leveling the foothills, mercilessly cutting down every tree in sight. To Frontrush, they were nothing more than a bunch of cruel destroyers of nature. Filled with rage, Frontrush decided to drive everyone out of its territory. Gathering great power, the spirit created a fierce snowstorm to disrupt the ongoing work. Seeing the approaching snowstorm, Sergeant Greg acted quickly, reminding his teammates to get ready and prevent the snow from piling up. Frontrush, feeling confident that their preparations would be in vain, smiled with satisfaction. In his mind, as long as they had physical bodies, nothing could withstand the cold he created. However, the reality was very different from what Frontrush imagined. Sergeant Greg and his workers actually seemed to be having fun, enjoying the snowstorm that came, even making a giant snowman while dancing around it. For them, the storm was more like entertainment than a threat. The orcs also looked even more enthusiastic, considering the snowstorm as tough training and enjoying it. Sergeant Greg, who was puzzled, asked one of the demon commanders if they didn't feel the cold of the snow. The demon commander replied that demons who couldn't withstand the cold had long since died. Although it sounded tragic, history is often filled with tragedy. The spirit finally understood that the orcs and demons were able to survive the snowstorm because of their strength. However, he was still puzzled at how humans, who were supposed to be weak, could survive by using a large amount of mana. While observing the workers enjoying the snowstorm, Frontrush began to plan his next move. With firm determination, he decided to confront the leader of this group directly. After circling the mountain, Frontrush finally found the leader's hiding place, and without wasting any time, he attacked immediately, creating a powerful tremor that could be felt all the way inside the cave where Lloyd and Queen Alicia were. Back in the present, Lloyd and Queen Alicia walked out of the cave. At that moment, Frontrush, hidden from plain sight, was observing them. He believed that Lloyd was the leader of the wicked group that had ruined his territory. With his power, Frontrush created an even bigger snowstorm, sweeping over the place where Lloyd and Queen Alicia were. Queen Alicia calmly observed the storm, realizing that if such a massive natural phenomenon could appear, then they were not ordinary magicians. Lloyd quickly added that this storm was also not the work of a dragon, because a dragon would not use a method like this. Queen Alicia concluded that if they were able to hide their presence and attack with a natural phenomenon, then there must be something bigger behind this. Hearing Queen Alicia's words, Lloyd smiled, feeling certain that this disturbance was definitely caused by a spirit. The spirit was impressed by the analysis given by Lloyd and Queen Alicia, but it still felt confident that its opponent had no way to fight against it. For Frontrush, there was no physical power or mana that could harm him. As the Spirit King, he considered everyone else as insignificant ants. With that confidence, he unleashed a powerful snowstorm again, charging toward Lloyd and Queen Alicia. However, without Frontrush realizing it, Lloyd began to sing a song. The sound he produced was terrible, creating vibrations that made anyone who heard it feel annoyed and in pain. As a result, Frontera was forced to cover both his ears, feeling excruciating pain in his head. The fierce snowstorm stopped instantly. The song not only calmed the storm, but also forced Queen Alicia to kneel while covering both her ears, shocked and too late to protect her hearing with mana. A powerful mental attack was immediately directed at her. Meanwhile, Frontera, who was floating in the air, fell because of the attack. Lloyd remained standing tall, unshaken. Queen Alicia, who was still struggling to overcome the effects of the mental attack, appeared to be staggering. The Spirit King, who could no longer hide himself, finally fell to the snow-covered ground. Seeing this, Lloyd calmly approached him. Lloyd grinned, observing the large body of Frontera that had fallen. In his heart, he felt that victory was getting closer. Meanwhile, Frontera, who was still trying to get up, wondered what kind of hellish magic had attacked him. As mana itself, there shouldn't have been any power that could hurt him. Lloyd, with a mocking expression, replied that it wasn't a physical attack. Then, Lloyd calmly asked why the spirit was interfering with the project he was working on. Angrily, Frontera accused Lloyd of pretending not to know the real reason. He was sure that Lloyd and his group had damaged nature, and he wouldn't let that happen. In an instant, Lloyd swiftly struck Frontera with his shovel. However, the spirit flew away while laughing, mocking Lloyd's strength, saying Lloyd's strength felt like nothing more than an ant bite. Hearing that mockery, Lloyd took a deep breath, preparing himself to unleash a much more powerful chant. However, Frontera, who was starting to feel deep fear, begged Lloyd to stop. With a tense voice, he said that all of this was enough. Queen Alicia, who couldn't take it anymore, hit the back of Lloyd's head and scolded him. She reminded Lloyd to pay more attention to the people around him before starting a chant like that again. Lloyd, who fell silent after hearing Queen Alicia's complaint, was stunned for a moment. Then, his expression changed to deep sadness. Queen Alicia quickly tried to correct her words, explaining that that wasn't what she meant. However, before their conversation could go any further, Frontera gathered a massive amount of mana energy from his surroundings, channeling that power into his body. With his power growing stronger, Frontera shouted in anger, declaring that he was the mountains, and the mountains were him. Lloyd and Queen Alicia watched the dramatic transformation with anxious expressions. The spirit had now turned into a terrifying giant, ready to launch an attack. Lloyd, with an anxious look on his face, realized that this situation was extremely dangerous. However, Frontera, not understanding what Lloyd was saying, could only look at him in confusion. With a mocking expression, Lloyd said that if the spirit considered him a threat, then it would face an even greater threat. Unnoticed by Frontera, a small light appeared in the distance, quickly drawing closer. It was Javier, who had nimbly prepared to attack the giant spirit. Javier's attack came so quickly, striking the head of Frontera hard, causing it pain. Lloyd saw that and laughed with his hands on his hips, watching Frontera in pain. With a terrifying smile, he confidently said that nature would eventually submit to humans. The laughter coming from Lloyd's mouth sounded frightening. It made Queen Alicia, who was beside him, look at him with a gaze full of amazement. She wondered how she, a queen, could feel attracted to a human like Lloyd. Javier's attack hit the giant spirit's body so hard that it was thrown far away. In its confusion, the spirit didn't understand how the attack could hurt it. With the mana power it possessed, that attack shouldn't have been able to hurt it. The spirit wondered to itself if the winged human in front of it was a very powerful Grand Master. However, Javier didn't stop. He attacked again aggressively. His sword struck the spirit's head squarely. Javier kept launching attack after attack. Meanwhile, Lloyd just stood still, watching from a distance. The spirit, who was starting to feel pain, begged Javier to hit another part of its body and stop striking its head. However, Javier ignored the request and kept hitting the spirit's head mercilessly. Finally, after a series of relentless blows, the spirit fell to the ground with its head full of lumps. In its desperation, the spirit screamed, apologizing and begging Javier to stop. Nevertheless, Javier continued his attack without mercy. Suddenly, he stopped. realizing there was a change in the spirit he was hitting. The spirit's form was now getting smaller. Javier's blows had caused the mana within the spirit's body to slowly leak out. Seeing this change, Javier drew his sharp sword, preparing for his next attack. With agility, he tried to bend the tip of his sword and hold it, then continued his attack. Using the flexibility of the sword and its spring effect, the blows received by the spirit became even more relentless. After several relentless attacks, Javier pulled back the tip of his sword again, then unleashed the same whip-like sword strike. Every time a blow landed, the little spirit became more and more helpless. However, in an instant, Lloyd, who was anxious, approached and asked Javier to stop and end the torment. He reminded Javier that torturing someone who had already surrendered would not solve anything. Queen Alicia, who was observing the incident, sensed that something was off. She began to question Lloyd's reaction, who had just tried to stop Javier after the spirit appeared battered. With great anxiety, Lloyd lifted the Spirit King's body, which now looked small and helpless. Looking worried, he asked if the spirit was okay, while asking Javier to step back and stop hurting the creature. Javier, who still showed an angry expression, tried to attack the spirit again. Without hesitation, Lloyd reacted quickly, ordering Javier to stop and not be cruel to the little spirit. Meanwhile, the Spirit King, who was frightened, hid behind Lloyd's hand. Queen Alicia began to realize that there was a hidden scheme behind Lloyd and Javier's actions, and she started to believe that the two of them were actually on the same side. The powerless Spirit King thanked Lloyd, admitting that he had been saved. In Queen Alicia's view, Lloyd was clearly the mastermind behind this crime, although she did not suspect that Javier had also been influenced and dragged into Lloyd's sway. Now, Javier and Lloyd looked more like villains who would use any means to achieve their goals, justifying anything to get what they wanted. A few moments later, Lloyd was seen talking to the little spirit, who was now kneeling in front of him. Gently, Lloyd asked why the spirit was interfering with his work. Through its tears, the spirit revealed that it couldn't bear to see nature being destroyed by humans. Lloyd smiled understandingly, then offered a solution. He proposed to restore the mountains while continuing his construction project. He wondered if that would be a problem for the spirit. Queen Alicia was surprised to hear Lloyd's offer. The spirit, after hearing the proposal, explained that if it could really be done, it would have no objections. However, in its eyes, humans have always been seen as destroyers of nature. Lloyd laughed when he heard that. Calmly, he explained that humans are an extraordinary species. While other creatures adapt to their environment, humans instead try to adjust the environment to suit their needs. Even so, because humans have the power to damage nature, they also have the responsibility to protect and care for it. Lloyd also promised to make those mountains much more beautiful. Queen Alicia, who was standing behind him, looked stunned when she heard that promise. In her heart, she felt that even though Lloyd had defeated the spirit, he was still trying to gain more advantage from it. Lloyd asked the spirit if it was able to make the climate in the mountains warmer, because that change would greatly support the smooth progress of his work. The spirit gladly confirmed that it could be done, as long as it did not disturb the balance of the ecosystem around the mountains. Hearing that answer, Queen Alicia took a deep breath. She found it difficult to guess what was really on Lloyd's mind. Even so, at the same time, that was one of the reasons why she liked Lloyd. The first task in this project was to build a railway line, which had to pass through the mountains. Draghi, with his attack power, blasted part of the mountain to create a narrow gap that would widen the surface of the track. After that, the work continued by leveling the surface, clearing the area, and strengthening the foundation for the railway tracks. The second step was to develop a rail switching system, designed using Sergeant Greg and Cortigas's mechanical expertise. Next, the third step was building the train, which was not a problem considering that Lloyd had previously succeeded in making a train in hell. The physical work was taken over by the demons, who possessed incredible strength, ate little, and had unlimited stamina. The fourth step, which focused more on environmental preservation, was planting trees and flowers to beautify the surroundings, as well as protecting nature with plants that could thrive in the highlands. The demons' knowledge in this area made them responsible for completing this stage. Even though the pain from the freezing in his heart could still be felt, Lloyd continued to monitor the ongoing construction process. Queen Alicia, who was starting to feel anxious, wondered if Lloyd was all right. She suggested that the environmental restoration phase be temporarily postponed so the project could be completed faster. However, Lloyd firmly rejected the suggestion. With full conviction, he stated that the preservation of nature must be prioritized because they are responsible for protecting and taking proper care of it. Queen Alicia was surprised and wondered if Lloyd would really do it, even if it meant sacrificing himself. With a smile on his face, Lloyd replied that if he didn't do it, he would definitely regret it, because the trade route that was once covered in snow would now turn into a stunning mountain view. Lloyd was sure that this beautiful view would become a major tourist attraction. Even a small inn could bring in tremendous profits. Hearing that explanation, Queen Alicia could only look on with a pained expression. She then reminded Lloyd that it was the kingdom funding this project and wondered if Lloyd was now aiming for personal gain. Lloyd was not surprised to hear that question. Without hesitation, he immediately knelt before Queen Alicia and explained that by dominating the trade routes between kingdoms and developing the tourism industry, the Magentano kingdom would gain tremendous wealth. Lloyd begged for permission to build a small inn in the area as part of his plan. Queen Alicia held back her laughter, leaving Lloyd confused. She said that there was nothing wrong with Lloyd's ambition and dreams, and finally allowed him to do whatever he wanted. She believed that Lloyd's ambition would ultimately benefit many people. Lloyd was very happy to hear her approval. In his heart, he felt that he had just secured a retirement fund for himself, which would go straight into his own pocket. Not long after, the railway project was almost finished. The demons could be seen moving the train, using their strength to push it. Lloyd gave the order to activate the switch lever. Once the lever was activated, the rails shifted and the train that was previously moving down now moved up. Inside the train, Lyra and the other demons seemed to enjoy the ride. The Spirit King also looked happy, watching the mountains that now appeared beautiful, covered in colorful flowers. Lloyd, Javier, and Queen Alicia gazed at the scenery from atop the rapidly moving train car. The system provided information that Lloyd had successfully freed the demon trapped in isolation and opened a historic trade route. As a result, Lloyd received a title. He received the title of Breakthrough Expert, as well as a unique ability, Jump Anytime. This ability allows Lloyd to leap with extraordinary power without any obstacles. With the 1,648 CP points he now has, Lloyd feels confused about what to use the points for. He had planned to look up the ending spoiler, but eventually canceled that intention. He realized that so far, he had only fixed things that were affected by his presence. To truly fight against the phenomenon of fate restoration, he has to go even further. Before he could finish his thoughts, the pain in his heart struck again. This incident caused Lloyd, who was sitting on top of the carriage, to lose consciousness. The vibrations of the carriage caused his body to fall to the side, but Queen Alicia reacted quickly and caught him. With a smile, Queen Alicia hoped Lloyd wouldn't worry because she would always protect him. While carrying the unconscious Lloyd, Queen Alicia asked Jafir to move quickly. They had to save the future of the Magentano kingdom as soon as possible. As time passed, dawn began to break over the Magentano royal palace. Inside his room, Lloyd woke up, confused by his surroundings, still not fully aware of where he was. Queen Alicia approached, placing her hand on his chest, channeling strong mana into Lloyd's body, making him even more confused by the situation he was facing. Queen Alicia sat beside the bed, checking if Lloyd was awake. Immediately, Lloyd got up and apologized for being impolite. Queen Alicia calmly replied that it was not a big deal. After all, it's normal for a sick person to lie down. Queen Alicia expressed her desire to give him more time to rest. However, Lloyd must soon prepare for the handover ceremony, an important event in the kingdom, which is the transfer of the Magentano royal artifact, the Summer Eye. Soon, a crowd began to gather in front of the palace. Queen Alicia, together with Lloyd and the nobles, stood on the palace balcony. In her speech, Queen Alicia praised Lloyd's remarkable achievement in opening the mountain pass that had long hindered the Magentano kingdom's expansion to the outside world. This success will transform the Magentano kingdom into a global trade center, making it one of the strongest kingdoms in the world without having to engage in war. As a reward for Lloyd's achievement, the kingdom will bestow the Eye of Summer upon him. However, when Queen Alicia glanced in Lloyd's direction, she saw his body trembling, a sign of his deteriorating health. Worry began to creep into her heart. A group of royal mages arrived carrying a storage box for the artifact. But at the same time, Lloyd's heart began to freeze and his consciousness slowly faded. His condition worsened. His heart stopped beating. The winter heart, which had always been within Lloyd, began to panic, trying to revive his frozen heart. Amidst all that, Duke Toscano gave a speech about the important history of the event, but all that could be seen was Lloyd, frozen, his body wrapped in cold air that drained his strength and eventually made him collapse. Without hesitation, Queen Alicia drew her sword and activated her powerful aura, rushing toward where the Eye of Summer was being kept. At the same time, Jafir, who was in the crowd in front of the palace, immediately flew toward Lloyd. Duke Toscano, confused by the Queen's actions, wondered what she was going to do. With a single swift slash, Queen Alicia cut the storage box, shocking everyone present. Inside the box, a small golden red orb was hidden, the Eye of Summer, surrounded by a heat aura that spread around it, forcing people to keep their distance. Jafir, who was flying toward the scene, immediately confronted the orb. Using his aura, he tried to contain the heat from the Eye of Summer so it wouldn't endanger people. Even so, the intense heat still burned his skin, adding to the difficulty of this battle. Meanwhile, Queen Alicia ran toward Lloyd, feeling anxious but confident that Lloyd would be able to overcome anything. With determination, she turned Lloyd's fallen body over and called out to him with great hope. Both of her hands were placed on Lloyd's chest, channeling all her mana into his body. Slowly, Lloyd's body began to respond. Little by little, his strength started to return. In a semi-conscious state, Lloyd's hand moved toward the air, absorbing the approaching energy with incredible strength. The Eye of Summer, which had previously been isolated by Jafir, now quickly moved toward Lloyd's hand, like a fireball shooting at high speed. In an instant, the fireball pierced Lloyd's body, and the Eye of Summer disappeared just like that, completely absorbed by Lloyd, leaving fragments of light swirling in the air. Everyone there fell silent, shocked and confused by what had just happened. The tension was clearly visible on their faces. Jafir, who had fallen to the ground, exhausted after trying to withstand the heat from the artifact, looked limp. Lloyd remained lying on the floor, with Queen Alicia faithfully by his side. Tem informed that the Eye of Summer had been successfully absorbed by Lloyd's body. Inside his body, the spirit of the Heart of Winter felt a bright light approaching. It became clear that it was the spirit of summer, a cheerful woman who finally met the spirit of winter. The two spirits gazed into each other's eyes with admiration, as if there was an attraction between them. They held hands and spun around joyfully, creating a perfect harmony. Their spinning grew faster and faster, until finally, Lloyd's heart, which had been frozen before, now beat normally again. The system provided information that the Heart of Winter and the Eye of Summer had now merged, functioning perfectly inside Lloyd's heart. Slowly, Lloyd woke up, confused, but now feeling the power flowing within him. The system stated that the sacrifices and trust given to others had now borne fruit. The trust that was built created a miracle, and working hard together resulted in extraordinary abilities. Demon King's Blessing. Every day, Lloyd can now grant a blessing to one person, and that blessing will last for 24 hours. The system states this blessing boosts the maximum potential of the recipient's unique skill. Lloyd asks what will happen if he gives the blessing to Javier's Grand Master skill. The system answers that with the blessing, Javier will reach the level of a true Grandmaster, with enough power to defeat even a god. Lloyd falls silent for a moment, pondering, then smiles like he's already plotting something. With his spirit reignited, Lloyd prepares to get up, drawing the attention of Queen Alicia, who has just woken up and looks at him with a sense of wonder. In an instant, Lloyd stands up, full of enthusiasm, and shouts to everyone in front of the palace, announcing a grand performance. He invites them to witness how the Magentano Kingdom has now become the richest country in the world, thanks to the newly opened trade route. Even if dragons attack, they will be able to deal with them easily. Cheers and applause greeted Lloyd's speech, while Javier, who stood back up despite being injured, stood beside him. Queen Alicia, who had sheathed her sword, smiled proudly at Lloyd. Lloyd turned, looking at the two people close to him. Lloyd then gave a confident smile, as if there were no more obstacles that could stop him.
Thank you for following the story this time. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. so you won't miss updates on other exciting comic recaps. Since I produce everything by myself, it takes time to prepare new videos. So please be patient. If there's a comic you want to discuss, just write it in the comment section. See you in the next video.